Hi everyone, welcome you all. So in the today's video, I'm going to show you how we can handle XML payload and XML response in API testing. So to parse our XML, we need to install a third-party library, which is XML2JS. So that library we have to install, and by taking help of that library, and we can post XML payload, or we can post a payload in the form of XML. And also, once we get a response in the XML format, we can easily parse it and we can validate the data on the XML response. Okay. So first of all, let me show you the API which I'm going to use for XML. So this is the pet store API. And by using this API, basically, we can create a new pet information, and we can get the pet information details, and we can also delete and update the pet details. So there are multiple requests we have already created here. So I'm taking two different requests here. So adding a new pet. So here we can pass this HTTP URL in the post request, and then we need to pass XML body as a payload. So this is the XML format we have to pass. And when you're passing this XML, we can add whatever data we want. So currently the ID will be automatically generated, and I provided the name, and here name equal to, this is the category information, and actual pet name is what, Jemmy, and some more details are available here. So this is the request payload which we are going to send along with this URL in the XML format. So once you send this request, we will get the response in the again same XML format. So whatever the name we have provided here, so that name is same name is got generated along with the ID. So this ID will automatically generated randomly whenever you're sending the post request. And in addition, whatever the data we are passing here, the like name and everything, so which will be displayed in the response. So basically here we are sending the response in the form, we are sending the request in the form of XML, and also we are getting the response in the form of XML, right? So in this particular case, how we can validate, how we can send this payload in the XML format, and how we can get the response in the XML, and how we can validate it in Cypress. Okay. So for that, we have to take the help of XML2JS. XML2JS library we have to first install. And by taking the help of that library, we will able to send this XML payload, and also we will able to validate XML response. Now let me show you how we can install this XML2 library. For that, we need to open the terminal. So first of all, we need to open the terminal like this. And inside the terminal, we have to execute one command. So this is a command I already executed earlier. Let me show you. So this is the command: npm install xml2js. So by using npm node package manager, and if you are installed node.js, by default you will get npm. So by using this npm, you will able to install this XML2 JSON library. So once it is successfully installed, now we will able to use this library on our test. Now let me close this. So I already have this library. So now let's directly go to the VS Code editor, and now under API testing folder, I'm going to create a new test. So let me create a new spec file, and my spec file name is parsing XML response.cy.js. So new file is got created. So whatever the library we have installed, right, we need to install that, right? So that's a prerequisite. I'll put this in the comment so that you will understand later. So to install XML2JS library, we have to execute this command in the command prompt: npm install XML2JS. Okay. So once we have done it, first of all, we need to import this XML2JS, and we need to create an instance of it. Okay, we cannot directly use it. So for that, we need to use one command called require. So inside the require, in the single quotation, we specify that library name, that is XML2JS. And this will return, we'll store that in a variable. I'm creating one variable called XML2JS. Again, this is just a variable name. Whatever you want, you can just keep it. And I will give the name is, let's say, constant variable I'll create. You can also use a let keyword. So this is the variable I have created, which is pointing to this library, which is imported. Then we need to create an instance for this XML2JS. By using new keyword, we will be able to create. I say new XML2JS, and in this we have, this is an object, so new XML2JS. I'm not going to create any other object reference variable, and this itself is a creating an object. A new keyword is always create a new object. So new XML to JS, and inside this object, I'm calling one method called parser. Okay, so this method will be used to parse the XML, and this will take one parameter that we need to specify in the curly brace, and that is explicit array. Okay, so explicit array, and the value is what we need to make it as a false. So this is the mandatory step. So this will basically return a parser object that we are going to store in a variable, and the type of variable will be again constant. So these two steps are mandatorily required before parsing the XML data, or before sending any XML payload along with the request. We need to take the help of this parser. Okay. Fine. So once we have done these two steps, so we have successfully created XML to JS and then parser, right? So once we have done it, now let us start writing the script. So what I'm going to do is, if I go back to the Postman tool, and this is a first request, I'm going to add a new pet by just passing some name here. And when you send this request, now we got the response in the form of again in XML, and the new IDs got generated. So by taking this ID as an input, I will get the pet information by using this ID. So for that, I have another request here, find pet by ID. So this is the URL, and here we need to pass the pet ID. So whatever pet ID I have created here, so the same pet ID I should pass along with this URL as a path parameter. So once you pass it, so then we will get the response. So for example, this is the pet ID which is generated, right? So now I'm passing the same ID here. So here you can directly pass. And when you send this, this will give you the same information, whatever pet ID we passed. So in the Postman, we can create a variable also. So I have created the collection level variable. So here I have updated my pet ID. So now the same pet ID I will refer in my request. So that how we can refer this, I can say in the double curly braces, we can refer. This is just a usage of variables. Here I can say pet ID. Right, so whatever pet ID we have created as a variable, so I can just pass it. Now we got the same information about that pet. Right. So now two requests we need to simultaneously send. One is we need to send a post request, which will create a new pet ID. And by taking the help of that pet ID, we need to get the information from the pet by passing the pet ID in the request URL. So two requests we have to send. One is post request, the other one is other one is get request. So when you are sending the post request, we need to pass body payload in the XML format, and also the response is in the XML format. And while retrieving the data, so we are sending the get request, and we will get the response in the XML format only. Okay, this we will parse. Okay, so now the same thing we will try to implement in the Cypress. So first, let me write a describe block. So in the describe, so I'm just writing XML parsing, and here arrow function, and this we need to implement. So before writing actual get request, before that we need to have a post request. We need to send a post request so that we can we can create an ID for the pet. So by using that ID, we will fetch the data from the database pet store. Okay, so for that I'm going to write one hook here. So hook is nothing but which will execute before actual it block. Okay, so now what I'll do is I will create one before hook. So before, and you can just write some description. I'm creating pet. So this is basically post request, and again arrow function. So this is arrow function. I'm going to write and say comma here. Okay, so we need to create a pet now. So to create a pet, we need to send a post request, and inside the post request, we have to send payload in the XML format. So we have to send this payload in the XML format, right? So for that, what you need to do is, before that, I will create one variable, and I will get this, I will store this I will store this payload in the variable. So I'll create one constant variable, and I'll name it as XML payload. Okay. So inside this, whatever the payload we want to send through this XML, and that I'm going to store inside this payload. See, if you copy this entire thing inside this double quotations, it will give an error. Okay, that format is not correct. So we need to keep this entire payload in the single line. Okay, so for that, what we can do is we can simply use some website. We can convert into single line, multiple line into single line. You can easily convert. So you can use any website. I'm just found this one. You can find so many. So here, whatever XML you have, you can just copy that XML payload directly. So whatever XML payload here, so you can just directly copy and then paste it over here. And this will automatically convert into single line. Okay, so now we can copy this and go back to the Cypress and then specify inside the double quotations. So remove this part and now just put the single line like this. So this is called XML payload that we are going to pass along with the post request. Okay. Now, once you send this post request, we will get a ID, pet ID. So to store that ID, because that ID I will refer in the another request. So to store that ID, I'm going to create one more variable. Let's say let pet ID, and currently I'm saying null. So later I will get this pet ID once you send a post request. All right. Now let us try to implement this before hook, and in this I'll write a post request so that it will generate the pet ID. Fine. So now let me write cy.request. So what type of request we have to send? Post request. So cy.request. So inside this we need to write a post request. So here in the curly brace we need to specify that. So what type of request we want to send? We want to send request method is post. So I can say method colon post, capital letters. And what is the URL you want to send? So URL is in the Postman, whatever the URL we have used here, adding pet, the same URL I'm going to refer here. So this is the URL which I'm going to send. Okay, so the method URL, and what is the body you want to send? Body. So we already created this body payload that we have already stored in the XML payload. So that I'm going to refer here. So body also mentioned. And what are the headers we need to pass additionally? So we have to pass two headers here. So the first header is what? The content type. So what content we are going to send along with the request. And even the response also in XML format. So that also we have to validate. So there are two kinds of headers we need to pass. The first type is what? Content type. In the single quotation or double, you can specify content type. So content type is what here? Content type is application / XML. This is the one header we have to pass. And the other header is what? Accept. The other header is accept. Suppose when you get the response, right? So when you send the post request, the content type is obviously we need to send XML. But once you get a response, that response will be text / plain. So this is the content type. So accept here. So this is the post request. Fine. So if I go back to the getting the details, and if I go to the header part, so here this will be accept, right? So this will be generate application / XML. So this is a response type we need to specify. Accept is a header. So that we need to specify here in the single quotation, accept. So one is for sending the payload, another is for getting the response. So two types of headers we have to pass. Okay, accept. So what is an accepted here? Text application / XML. Okay, this is both are XML format only, but one is for sending the request and other is getting the response. So now these are the two headers we have to specify and then close the request. Okay. So now this will go and send the post request. cy.request, we specified whatever is required. So which will send the post request, and then we have to verify the response, and also we need to capture the pet ID from that response. So dot then, and whatever response we capture, that we are going to store in response, and then arrow function. So whatever response we capture from this request, we are going to validate here. So validate, I'm just writing some expect response code. I say expect response dot status. status that should be 2.eq 200. So response code should be 200. And also now we need to capture the ID. From the response, I want to capture the ID. So we cannot directly capture the ID from the response because the response is in XML format. So we have to parse it. So to parse it, we have to use this particular parser. So we already declared this at the beginning, right? So by using this object parser, we should able to parse the response, XML response, and then we will able to get the data whatever you want from the response. So here we need to use something called parser object, whatever we created at the above. Inside this, there is a method called parse string. So parse string is a method. So what this parse string will do is basically this will convert that XML into JSON object. Okay, so it will basically converting XML response, whatever we got, into the JavaScript object so that we will able to capture the data from the JavaScript object. So parser dot parse string, and here we have to pass one parameter that is called response dot body. We have to pass, and here we need to pass one more parameter that is called error message and then result. So error is nothing but suppose if there is an error that will be stored here. And if you get a proper response from this body, then that will store in the result. This is a syntax which we have to use exactly for parse string. Okay. And this again, the arrow function we need to create. So whatever the response we captured, that response will be converted into JSON object that will be stored in the result variable. Okay. Now from this result, we are able to capture the data. So if I go back to the Postman tool again, in the pet tag, the ID tag is available. So same thing we have to write here. So from the result dot pet is a node. Inside the pet, there is an ID is available that we want to capture and store into pet ID. Pet ID. So pet ID variable we already created here as a global variable so that I can use the same pet ID in another request. Okay, so this is how we can simply send before hook. Before means this will be executed before executing actual it blocks. Okay, before executing actual it blocks, this before will be executed. Fine. So now let us test this one. So let us execute this one and see whether we are able to create a new pet ID or not. So status code 200 we are expecting, and we also capture the pet ID inside this variable. Okay, now let us save the file and then open the terminal, and I'll open the Cypress app, npx Cypress, open. Now go to end-to-end testing, click on this button, and then here, whichever the spec we want to execute, just click on that. So parsing XML response. So no test form means there are some additional tags which we have created, I guess. Let me remove this. I think this is a starting point. I think this is not necessary. Okay. Okay, so let me cross check the alignment. So this is a open bracket. So here the before is got started, and here the request is got end, and then is got started. So this parser is got end. This is then is got end here, and here this is the book hook, and this is the it. This is a describe block. Okay, so I think I don't see any error. So let me just execute one more time. So from here to here. Okay, so I have just aligned properly. Okay, so now let us try to save the file and then execute. Save it. Go back here and refresh. Still, it could not find. So Cypress could not detect this file. So write using your preferred text editor. So let me just cross check once again. So the problem is because this is not a it block, right? So that's the reason it is not get executed. So you can say no test found means, or the test in the sense it block, right? So it block, if you have it block, that will be considered as a test. So that is the reason it is not properly executed. So let's make it as a it block so that it will be able to execute. Now let me save the file and go back to the Cypress app again. So this time it will be executed. So now you can see I'm refreshing my this and then it is successfully executed. We got the status code. Okay. So this I want to execute before actual it block. So this time I want to fetch the data by sending the get request. Okay. So here by using this, I'm able to create the pet ID. So by taking the help of this pet ID, we will try to fetch the information from the database. So for that, I'm going to create one more block and where I will send the get request. Okay, another block. So in the previous one, so I'll make it as a before again, because this is a prerequisite for it block, because we need a pet ID. So anyway, pet ID we capture, so that I'm going to refer in another request. So now this time we are getting the information. So fetching pet data. So here basically we are parsing XML file. Okay, parsing XML response. Parsing XML response. Fine. So how to parse XML response? So what type of request we have to send this time? We have to send get request. And what is the URL we have to send? So this is the URL we have to send, and copy this URL, and then I'm sending this URL. And if I look at here, this parameter should come from the pet ID that we already created from the first request. So this pet ID, I'll try to use it here. So how to use this pet ID? If you want to pass this path parameter, so first close this URL here and concatenated with the pet ID. So that variable name you have to use like this. Remove this and then say pet ID. And here this single quotation or double quotation you can close. So this is the path parameter. We can just append it to the URL. And do we need any body? Because it's a get request, we don't need any body. So I can just remove this. Okay, so what type of headers we require here? We need only one required. Content type is not required. So we can just have only accept. This is for response we created. So one header is required. Okay, so once you send this get request, now we got the response. So in the response, what are all things we need to validate? So in the response, we can validate the status code. So if you can go back to the Postman tool and when you face the data, so status code is always 200 here. So 200 is status code I'm verifying. And apart from this, we should also verify something in this body. So I can verify the ID and we can verify the name, right? So all these things, ID is dynamically generated. So we can verify the name and other type of fields. So let us say I want to verify the name in the XML response. So for that, again, we have to use parser. So whatever we created here, the same parser we have to use to parse the XML response. So parser dot parse string and a response body, response.body. Inside the body, we have actual data, ID, name, and so on. So this body we want to store in the result. This is a result function. And now from that result, we are capturing the pet name, because ID we don't know, ID is dynamically generated, right? So we need to verify the name. So whatever name we have generated here, same name, Jimmy should be there. So here I can say, instead of capturing this, I'm just writing the assertion. I say expect result dot pet dot ID and dot to dot equal and equal dot equal, and here we can specify in single or double quotations the value. This is the one validation. Suppose if you still want to validate ID, and you can specify, we don't know exact which ID will be generated. So whatever ID which is got generated by this hook, that will be stored in this variable called pet ID, right? So the same ID should be there here also. So result dot pet dot, this is the name. This is the name and this is a ID. So that ID should be what? Pet ID. And this is generated dynamically, right? So here, oh, sorry, not here. We need to put here. Just a second. I think I have changed this one. Sorry, guys. We need to modify this one actually, whichever is parsing. Okay, so I have updated here. So let me just remove this. Just a second. We are capturing only the pet ID here along with the status code. Let's say put pet ID. Just a second. Okay, so this is the pet ID. This is the validation for 200. So this is the hook actually. We should not modify this because this will generate the pet ID. Now come to the below one. So we are sending the get request with this URL and a header type. And this is the response we captured, parsing. And here, this we need to modify. So here, instead of this, we need to write an assertion. Asset expected. Expect. Right. So what you are expecting from the result dot pet dot ID. So what is an ID we are comparing with what? Equal to pet ID. So whatever we generated by using this hook, right, above. So the same pet ID should be there. So there's a one validation point. Now I want to verify the name. Expect result dot pet dot name and dot again this is equal to, and what is the name we are expecting here? We are expecting Jimmy. This is the name of the pet that I can specify. So this is how simply we can parse XML response. So by taking the help of XML J2 parser, XML2JS parser. Okay. So first in the before we have created a new pet ID, and the same pet ID we are using again in the second it block. So here, whatever pet ID is generated in above, the same pet ID I'm validating with, and also I'm validating the name in the response. Okay, that's it. So let's save the file and see the output for this. Save it and go back to the Cypress app. Now it is successfully executed. Let me refresh and execute one more time. Yes, now we can see before all, the hook is got executed and generated the pet ID and status code is 200. And in the second response, we are sending the get request. So even status code is same, and this is the pet ID which is got generated. And it is exactly matching with our expected pet ID, and the also name is also got matched. Okay, so this is how we can simply send post request with XML payload. And similarly, we can also get the response in XML. Even that also we can validate after parsing the XML response. And that is possible by taking the help of XML2JS library that first we need to install. And then we need to create a parser by using that. And by using this parser, we will able to parse XML payload or XML response. Okay. So this is all about this video. The next video, we'll discuss another concept. Thanks for watching.